Hi everyone, Happy New Year! We made it to 2022. So this is the first video of the new year and we're making Russian pelmeni. This is a pelmeni mold and I know not everyone has one, so you can use a shot glass or a biscuit cutter when we get ready to cut out our dough discs. So to start this dish in the bowl of a food processor or stand mixer, I'm adding in 2/3 of a cup of milk, 3/4 of a cup of water, 1 large whole egg, and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. We're going to mix this on low just until the egg incorporates, and once it does, we can slowly start adding in 4 1/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour. I did add this in about 1/2 of a cup at a time, but once half of your flour is in, you can go ahead and lift that top part and just dip in the rest of that flour. We're going to run this on medium just until the dough comes together for about 5 to 8 minutes and we get this soft, beautiful dough. Once we've achieved that, we can cover this with a tea towel and let this rest for 1/2 an hour. While that dough is resting, we can work on the filling. So I have 1 medium onion. I'm just grating this over the smallest holes of my box grater because we want this to almost juice the onion. It's going to add so much flavor and add like a liquid to our filling. It's not going to be like a soup dumpling, but it's going to add just a little moisture. And that tiny grated onion gets a little more intense as it grates, and it's absolutely delicious in these dumplings. The first time I had pelmeni, my sister's boyfriend, now husband, brought them over. We were all living in Miami, and I thought, oh, Asian dumplings. He's like, no, these are Russian dumplings. And I guess they were the closest ones that he could find that tasted like the ones his mother and his grandmother used to make, and they were absolutely delicious. Next up, we're going to also grate 3 cloves of garlic. Right into the same bowl is fine. And be sure to scrape out the inside of your box grater because a lot of that stuff likes to hide in there. For our herbs, we need 2 tablespoons of fresh dill, and we want to chop this up pretty finely. This is going to add a freshness and almost a grassiness to our filling. And we can just add that straight away into the bowl. Now we're going to add 1 1/2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground pepper, 1 teaspoon of vinegar, and 1 tablespoon of water. Next in goes 1 pound of ground pork and 1 pound of ground chicken. You could substitute this with lamb. I've had the pelmeni with lamb before, and it's really scrumptious. But if you don't like lamb, just switch it out for whatever ground protein you prefer. Just get in there with your hands and mix this together until everything is thoroughly combined. Once that's ready, we're going to cover this and pop this in the fridge while we prep our dough. So if you don't have a silk pat mat, don't worry about it. You just need a nicely floured surface because this dough tends to be a tiny little bit sticky. So you just don't want it to rip as you're rolling it out because we want to roll this out pretty thin. And I'm not using the whole ball of dough at first. I'm just tearing off little manageable sections because this is very stretchy and pliable. So it's just easier for me to work in smaller increments. Don't forget to flour your pan as well. And we're going to just start rolling this out. We want this to be very thin. You want to be able to see the outline of your hand when you place it underneath the dough because we're going to fold these in half. And we want a good proportion of dumpling wrapper to filling. I remembered I have my marble rolling pin. This made this job so much easier. I always forget I have this rolling pin. My kitchen is tiny, so I tuck things away and forget that they're there. Just keep adding more flour if you need it. And for this video, I actually only made enough to make 1 serving. I did finish up making the rest of my dumplings after. And what I did is after I formed them, I popped them on a sheet tray, threw them in the fridge till they're completely frozen, then put them in a Ziploc, and so I can have pelmeni whenever I want. So my biscuit cutter is about 2.5 inches wide. I'm just going in and punching out discs of dough. Just trying to utilize that surface area as efficiently as possible. This is the fun part. You pull up all the scraps and you get these beautiful little rounds, but don't throw away with the scraps. We're gonna rework that and make more dumpling wrappers. So working one at a time, we're going to stretch this out a little bit more. Just giving it a little roll. And then we're going to add a half of a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of our filling. It depends on what size rounds that you make. You can make these bigger, you can make them smaller. It's just gonna make, if you make them smaller, it's gonna just make it harder to roll or to wrap. So I'm just wrapping this completely in half into a half moon shape, making sure everything is thoroughly sealed, and then just taking those two ends and bringing them together to meet in the middle. This is like making a tortellini, and it is adorable. It looks like a little baby's bottom. So over high heat, I'm bringing 6 to 8 cups, depending on how much you're making, of water to a boil. And I'm going to salt this because you want to season your water. Then we're going to just start dropping in our little pelmeni dumplings. Now, they're going to be at the bottom, but as they cook, they're going to start to float to the top, and that's what you want. Once they've gotten to the top, you want to cook these for about 5 to 7 minutes. If they're frozen, if you decide to freeze these and not eat them right away, they may take a little longer to cook. As you can see there, they've all floated to the top. They've stayed together. I'm thrilled about that. But whenever I'm making dumplings, I definitely have a sacrificial dumpling. I just want to make sure that filling is cooked through. We don't want to serve any raw food to guests or to yourself. So sacrifice one of your dumplings, just chop it in half and make sure everything is cooked. And this looks good, so I'm going to move that to a back burner. And I have a saucepan. I'm adding in 3 tablespoons of salted butter. Once that's melted down, I'm just going to transfer the pelmeni straight from the boiling water into my saucepan. We also need to add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of that pasta water. We want that starch. What's going to happen is as this cooks, it's going to emulsify with the butter and create its own sauce. You're also going to want a lot of freshly ground black pepper. It brings so much depth of flavor to these little tiny dumplings. So we're going to let's saute this and let this cook for about 2 minutes, just until you notice that sauce become a little thicker, a little glossier, and until it coats all of your pelmeni. And this is looking beautiful. And you can see that butter sauce has thickened up a little bit, so we're about ready to plate this. So I made enough for myself because my partner doesn't eat carbs. I think he's crazy, but he doesn't. We're going to garnish this with a little bit more freshly chopped dill. And then a dollop of sour cream. You could also boil these in chicken broth and eat them kind of like soup. That would be delicious. But let's go ahead and give these a taste. The dumpling wrapper is tender and perfectly al dente. The combination of chicken and pork is juicy and savory and satisfying. You taste that onion, you taste hints of garlic, you can taste that freshness of the dill as well throughout the filling. The sour cream adds a richness and a creaminess to this dish, as well as that beautiful butter sauce that we made. This is a perfect winter night meal. But there they are, Russian pelmeni. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you loved it, subscribe and hit that notification bell because I put out new videos every Thursday. Thank you again. Thank you for joining me in my first video of 2022. And until next time, happy cooking. Oh my God, my eyes are burning. Anyone can let me know of a way to not cry while grating onions. Please, please drop it in the comments below. Torture.